The old American West has always been so fascinating to me. The rugged frontier, where men and women look to make a life for themselves on a barren plot of land. It was the cowboys and outlaws, those who choose to fight back against the call of civilization, or shoot anyone who looks at them funny. It's the iconography of the long duster, revolvers, crowded saloons, and gun duels that are timeless. Of course, movies have been keen on the allure of the Wild West for decades, and you can't blame them. It's a setting full of possibilities, from the wandering gunslinger, the supernatural unexplained, and the grizzled deputies. The lawlessness of its setting, ripe for tales of revenge as well as coming-of-age stories. In video games, the genre's history isn't as illustrious. In fact, we are in a bad drought at the moment. That's not saying we haven't ate good either. I remember renting Gun on the Xbox and loving that game, and we get really cool character designs like Mortal Kombat's Aaron Black. But there is no doubt, the biggest Western games has to be the Red Dead Redemption series. Rockstar crafted a world full of deep characters, an expansive open world, and tight gunplay. But the series does have its humble beginnings, and it can be really easy to forget because of the acclaim and money generated, which leaves the very first game as the black sheep of the series, an often very forgotten title, but an important one. It kicked off the Western game trend and continued to the late 2010s, both taking a promising up-and-coming studio and making them one of the powerhouses for Rockstar games. Angel Studios comes from humble beginnings. In 1971, Diego Angel wanted to start a career as a filmmaker. He moved to Chicago and enrolled at Columbia. Angel grew fond of computer animation, describing computers as the future, which is probably the biggest understatement of all time. Finishing his degree and moving to San Diego, Angel would start Angel Studios. As he worked for a higher animation studio, the studio would not have a paying client for the first 6 months, and only $5,000 in revenue that year. Their first project was an educational video for University of California, San Diego. They allowed more work for Nintendo, Polaroid, and HBO. The studio will also create that weird-ass sex scene in Lawnmower Man. The 90s was their entry point in the world of video games, first developing cutscenes for the Sega CD version of For Echo, Tides of Time. The studio would become part of Nintendo's dream team for their next budding console, the Nintendo 64. The first two games as part of the dream team were Ken Griffey Jr. Major League Baseball and Ken Griffey Slugfest. They would be approached by Capcom, who were interested in porting Resident Evil 2 to the Nintendo 64, which at the time was considered impossible given the limited space and power of Nintendo's cartridges. They were able to do it, and without cutting anything from the original game, even the cutscenes, although they were compressed as shit. Indie studios would continue to create games, one of those being Midtown Madness. This game would catch the eyes of Rockstar Games, who would play the game on their lunch breaks and wanted to work with the studio. The studio was fascinated that Rockstar didn't give them any limitations. They were going to develop Midnight Club and Smuggler's Run, games that were met with praise and great sales. Angel Diego was looking to sell the company, and buyers included Activision and Microsoft. But it was Rockstar's Dan and Sam Houser who approached Angel with a bottle of tequila and came away buying the studio for $41 million. And 125 employees will become integrated to Rockstar, and Angel Studios will officially be named to Rockstar San Diego. Rockstar would look at the team's unfinished projects, and the game Red Dead Revolver caught their eye. Red Dead Revolver started its life as a collaboration between Capcom and Angel Studios, after their stellar work porting Resident Evil 2. Oshiga Okamoto approached the studio asking for the original IP, at first pitching a tactical shooter named SWAT. This new idea would have had a player control different characters, clearing different buildings. The concept then changed to an island taken over by robots. The idea didn't go too far past the concept stage. After digging through the grab bag of old properties, they landed on creating a spiritual successor to 1985's Gunsmoke, and the acronym SWAT would turn to Spaghetti Western Action Team. Artist Akira Yashuda and creating characters for Street Fighter 2 will move to the United States to help with character design, but cultural differences would make development troublesome. Angel Studios was looking to make a gritty Western game in the vein of the spaghetti westerns of the 60s and 70s, and Okamoto and Capcom were looking for a more over-the-top arcade shooter. Concepts that Capcom wanted to include was a Frankenstein monster who wore a white dress, and he would go around killing other women and stealing their dresses. Even the title of the game left the team scratching their head. They would admit it sounded cool, but it just didn't make any sense. But what cool name ever does? The game would officially be revealed in March 2002, however development was still rocky. Capcom seemingly trashing whole levels without giving any studios much of a reason. This will lead to them missing milestones and risking not even getting paid for the work. Frustrations were mounting, and many in the studio were doubtful this game would ever get released. But in July 2003, Okamoto will leave Capcom, and just like that, funding for the project went along with him. Leaving the studio with an unplayable build, Rockstar were able to acquire Red Dead Revolver from Capcom in exchange for publishing rights for a Japanese release, if releasing the game was even possible. This deal would happen in December 2003, and Rockstar would pull out their trusty crunch card, getting the game ready for release on the year of our Lord, 2004. When booting up the game, you will be hit right with one of my favorite intros to a game ever. I watch this 1-minute introduction every time I boot up the game. It's so good. It's what really inspired me to do this video. After relishing in that introduction, we get to the main menu. I love this in-universe menu. It goes a long way to give the game personality. The game puts you in the shoes of Red Harlow, which must be a top 5 best names for a game character ever. He's a young kid living out on the frontier, and his father comes home declaring they are now rich, since him and his buddy struck gold. He brandishes his new revolver, one of two, the other belonging to his partner. More on that later. So Red inherits his dad's old used up gun. Like any other good kid, he is still pretty stoked. This is where he goes to the game's tutorial. Shooting works like most games of that era. On the Xbox, left trigger draws your weapon, and use the right stick to aim, and the right trigger to shoot. The aiming can feel a bit floaty, and there is a bit of an aim assist going on as well, and also a huge hit detection window, something I will become very grateful for during certain sections of the game. A lot of that Capcom DNA remained in the final game, as shootouts keep that fast-paced arcade feel to them, especially when enemies begin to fill the screen. During the tutorial, the game hints at a possibility of targeting different limbs, but that aspect of combat never really comes to play. After Red is done shooting up your mom's pots and pans, your little house of paradise begins to get raided, and Red doesn't hesitate at all to air these fools out. Try their best to push these guys back, but to no avail. As a uniformed man and two goons shoot your parents and burn down your house, among the wreckage at the end of a gun, Red eyes his dad's custom revolver. He reaches forward in the fire and completely blows this dude's arm off. Was that revolver equipped with shooting bullet bills from Mario or something? It's so ridiculous. This helps Red get away, but leaves a scar of a scorpion on Red's palm. This intro is very cliche. I get the whole avenging my dead parents can be played out, but for a game like this it still works to get the player motivated. Maybe it would have worked better if we could have spent more time with them. By the time we do sit together, we see that Red has a good family, and to see it ripped away from him is still very tragic. I want to say around 10 years pass, and Red is all grown up. His hand is healed and wrapped up. He's trying to bounty hunt to make ends meet, and he found a new furry friend that I'm sure will make it to the end of the game. We get introduced to this shop. We can't get much as far as weapons. We only have a knife for purchase, but it's will open up soon enough. Red can also buy these relics or souvenirs that fill up the journal in the main menu, and also unlock characters in the showdown mode, which is this game's multiplayer suite. Just a quick little side note, but what genius put the buy option on the Y button instead of buying the gun? I got kicked back into the game. I struggled with this change the whole game. A pair of tough guys come up to you and rough up the shopkeeper and choose to pick up a fight with Red, which would be the last choice they would make.
What the hell are you looking at? Fill 'em full of lead.
Shortly afterwards, the game shows you how to take cover, which works fine, Isn't Gears of War, but it gives you some breathing room to find shots and pick off more of the distant enemies. More importantly, however, this is where Deadeye gets introduced. The most well-known and beloved feature of this game, and the only feature that made it to the later entries. The meter below your health will begin to fill up as you take down enemies, or when you take damage. Once the little segment is filled up, you can press down the right thumbstick, and time will slow down. Then you paint targets on your enemies, the amount corresponding with how much ammo you have in your weapon. So it's best to aim for the vital areas. This mechanic does a really good job at making you feel overpowered. It helps give you some breathing room, and more importantly, it is fun to use. It helps to sell like a gunslinger power fantasy. Red is not one to leave a good body lying around, and Red is expected to get paid for a hard day's work. So he borrows the old merchant's cart and takes them into the nearest town, Widow's Patch. Meeting Sheriff O'Grady, the sheriff lets you know the Ugly Gang has taken over the town, a gang that you viewer, are a part of. Just kidding. I like how this gang took over a whole town, but still let the sheriff live. Wouldn't take care of him be like the first thing you would do? And to add that extra layer of hate towards these guys, just shoot your dog. He didn't even get a name or anything. By the way, I love his little slow turn Red does. It's like so funny. This is not a gunfight, letting the player put their skills to the test. And at the end of the fight, you get your first gun duel. These are easy to get a grasp of. Tilting down on the right thumbstick mimics your hand grabbing your revolver, and tilting it up pulls it out of the holster. And after the gun is pointed, you can choose where you want to target, and different radicals indicating the severity of each shot. Yellow is a poor hit, red being a guaranteed hit, and dark red being a critical shot. And pulling the right trigger will lock the cursor. And if you're feeling brave, you can press down the thumbstick to cut the slow motion short. A funny little detail: if you don't push the thumbstick down far enough to grab your revolver, Red will just put up an empty hand. Like, he looks so dumbfounded too. Duels are a big set piece of the game, happening quite often, eventually leading to 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 duels. This is what leads to the first boss with Ugly Chris, and he sure lives up to that name. But these 6th generation faces also don't do him any favors. He'll pick up the sheriff and use him as a human shield. You can shoot him in the legs to stun him for extra damage. This is sort of the pattern for most of the bosses encounters in the game. They always have a way to stun them, often involving shooting them in the back or in the head, and this will open them up for big damage. The sheriff caught some red stray bullets, or got ragdolled too hard by Ugly Chris, because this man is on the brink of death, and his busty daughter implores us to take him to the nearest town, Brimstone. Between each level, we get the results screen, displaying the typical information: time, accuracy, and damage taken. The player either gets a good or excellent score. These will reward you with either a new showdown character or stage, and upgrades to your health, weapons, or Deadeye. The shop also becomes available between each mission. Red can earn cash by shooting enemies, which is all that Red does, so his pockets are always brimming with cash. Think of the money system like your traditional scoring system in an arcade game, like Time Crisis. The better you do and more enemies you take out in rapid succession, the more you earn. Red accompanies the sheriff on the train, and here you can talk to some of the passengers.
Mister, you could really use a hot bath and some fresh clothes.
Well, fuck you then, punk!
Don't have much to say, but it is nice window dressing. Of course, you can't ride a train in a Western game without it getting hijacked. Here you have your second duel, and I love the added detail of the other guys shaking, and the look Red gives him when he realizes this is a nice touch. Once you deal with him, that's when the bandits begin to climb on the train, and Red jumps in to try and save the day. I love a good train level, and compared to some of the greats like Uncharted, this one is just okay. There's a section where you have to crouch underneath planks or jump over them. The level ends with a 3-minute standoff. Bandits will roll in on horseback or from the back of the train, some of them even jumping onto the train themselves, with varying levels of success. This last stand lacks any sense of urgency or danger. There's just too much downtime in between waves of enemies. Arriving at Brimstone, we do get in touch with Sheriff Bartlett, that classic Western gentleman with a mighty fine handlebar mustache. Brimstone serves as the central hub. Red will be coming back here every so often, and compared to the other Red Dead games and even other Rockstar games at the time, this quote open world is quite small. There's not much to do either. It's only like 3 streets wide. You can enter a few stores, but a lot of buildings are closed or just serve as window dressing. You can talk to each resident, but again, they don't have much to say. They will often just reference events that just happened, and my god, these faces are rough. Holy shit. This is also the first time we hear about the Battle Royale, and the winner gets a $5,000 prize. The sheriff plans a huge line of work to help clean up his town. The first man on his bounty board is Pig Josh, a dynamite-loving big man. This mission is significant because we get to meet Jack Swift, another awesome name and an equally awesome dude. After getting into a gunfight, Red decides to free Mr. Swift, and two get to work clearing out this fort. The fight with Pig Josh is a pretty big pain in the ass.
You're gonna blow up real good, cowboy.
You can stun him. He can deflect your shots using his makeshift shield, so tackling him head on is a no-go. And he can just send Red flying if you are near him, doing massive amounts of damage.
It's the same old fucking shit!
He also moves extremely fast around the arena, so it could be hard to get an idea where he is. Jack seems like he was there to help, but he also has a hard time getting a shot on him. There's also a Gatling gun, and it's one of those cool old school ones that is used earlier in the level to clear out a bunch of bandits, but good luck using it with Pig Josh running around. Getting around this guy can be a bit challenging. Once he gets his eyes on you and charges your direction, nothing can stop him. With a bit of luck and persistence and very shoddy AI, Ray gets him down. The next level is the first character switch of the game. Red Dead Revolver will switch between playable characters every few levels. Give the players a new perspective and to flesh out the story. We assume the role of the dashing Englishman we just saved from Pig Josh, Jack Swift. He seems to be a trick shot. He used to work with the circus until we got tired of that gig and decided to escape. Jack runs into Katie, which I think is supposed to be Grady's daughter we met earlier in the game. I'm not sure. It's never made clear, but I think it is. While trying to set her free, Jack gets jumped by the rest of the circus pals, little clowns, fire spitters, and knife throwers.
Who is up for some barbecue?
While playing as Jack and activating Deadeye, he automatically locks on 12 targets and lets those bullets rip out all at once. It's an awesome effect, and outside of Red's is my favorite ability, as it is an instant room clear. While you mow down a bunch of these freaks, eventually the boss of the whole thing will appear, Dr. Perry, along with his snake oil. He's able to teleport around the arena. It's never explained how he can do this, you just have to roll with it. It was the Wild West, a time of mystical shit happening all the time. Do enough damage to him and he'll stop to take a sip of his flask and heal himself back up to full health. He will do this around 2 more times before this flask runs empty. It isn't a hard fight, you just have to keep moving and shooting. This is where a bit of that aim assist and generous hitboxes really came in handy. I distinctly remember playing this part as a kid and getting so mad because I kept dying on the second or third wave. This time I got through this level with little to no issue because in the past 20 years I've become an expert gamer, obviously. And while freeing Katie, she informs Jack of the Battle Royale, taking place in Brimstone. So naturally, Jack decides to enter to win the big cash prize and shout the champ at WrestleMania, brother.
But the cream will rise to the top.
Return to Brimstone, and I wish each time we come back, we can see some sort of patch of time, or some sort of indication that Red is making an impact in this world. Perhaps a new store opens, or come back to a different hours of the day, just to make each visit different. Add a bit more variety. Because the only thing worthwhile is visiting the store for any new items that become available, but that also becomes pointless as you go to a store between each level anyways. The sheriff sends Red to his next bounty. This time it is a woman named Bad Bessie. She's hiding in the nearby canyons. This level is the biggest so far in the game. The ones previous were like little arenas, sort of like multiplayer maps. This is where the game begins to open up, and there are great points for cover and enemies will be sniping you in the distance. There's a bit of platforming, not the best. I wish Rick can really get a move on. There are these huge dudes who can throw whole ass boulders at you. It is ridiculous, and again, I think there's a bit of that Capcom Japanese absurdity leaking through. Red also runs into the merchant from the beginning of the game, and he tries to sell you a health upgrade, but I spent all my cash on weapons, so I couldn't even get it.
I'm broke as shit.
As far as I can tell, if you don't buy it now, then you're just shit out of luck, since I couldn't find this upgrade from any of the other stores. I wish there was some sort of indication that this upgrade was only being available here, or perhaps not make it cost so much. He begins to follow you around, and I was thinking he would be able to back you up, but he gets killed immediately, which after stiffing me on that upgrade is really well deserved. The rest of the level is an enjoyable gauntlet of enemies, and lets the gunplay really shine with a mix of stop and pop cover shooting and arcade spray and pray. We get to the boss fight with Bad Bessie. It's not too bad, just shoot her in the head a bunch of times until she gets stunned. Her biggest damage dealer is her whip, so don't get too close to her. Also watch out for boulders and snipers. Your best bet is to keep moving and focus on her. After making easy work of Bad Bessie and her gang, Red loads her up and ships her back to the sheriff. And he hates to see a pretty lady go out like that, but a man has to get paid.
Hate to kill a lady.
Back in town, you see that Jack is also here. He doesn't have much to say, but it is cool to see him again. Mr. Black is the last bounty, and he is holed up in a desolate ghost town. This level looks great. And look at the shot of Red walking up that opens up the level. I love the look and vibe of this abandoned mining town. But if I'm being honest, it's just one big hallway, as there isn't really any opportunity to do any exploring. The narrow level design does allow for a cover mechanic to really shine a little bit, and enemies being funneled towards you just gives you more to shoot at, which you'll never hear me complain about. At the end there is a duel, this time with 3 dudes. The training wheels are officially off, and I must have still needed them because I absolutely failed this one. But to the game's credit, if you do fail a duel, it isn't game over. Red does get shot up, but you are still able to continue fighting. But now you're punished with half your health being gone. Playing this level, I started to notice how much damage these enemies can take. I swear I shot some dudes about 8 or 9 times, and they still didn't go down. And some of them take a full 6 shots from Deadeye and keep going. Inconsistent damage output can be a really big pet peeve of mine, and this sort of inconsistency doesn't ruin the experience for me, but it does start to make my eye twitch a bit, especially towards the harder sections of the game. Mr. Black greets you in the cemetery, and he is carrying a huge coffin on his back. It's not just decoration, as he can pull a chain gun and turn you into Swiss cheese. However, it is easy to avoid, and his goons aren't bad either. Coming back for the pocket full of cash, the sheriff lets you know that the gold and your payment still hasn't arrived, and then take your grievance over to Mr. Peabody, the bank's manager. Getting there, you hear an argument he is having with another patron, Annie Stokes. The mayor of Brimstone has been trying to buy her ranch from her, and she managed a huge amount of gold found in Bear Mountain, the same gold Red's father found many years ago. Red decides to politely ask Mr. Peabody about Bear Mountain and gets nothing, so he follows Annie to her ranch to find out what is really going on around here. Annie Stokes is most likely a precursor to Aunt Bonnie McFarlane in Red Dead Redemption. The rugged female rancher doing her best to survive, goons are attempting to burn down the rest of the ranch and its livestock, and the rest of her farmhands got paid off, so all that stands between them is Annie Stokes. She's armed with a rifle, and her Deadeye lets her ready an explosive shell, and this thing is bombastic as hell. It makes no sense whatsoever, but it's fun to see these fools go flying. Annie can mount one of the buffaloes, and it's necessary for the last 2 enemies as they are also on buffaloes. This whole level takes about 10 minutes maximum, but it's the first time I remembered how unforgiving checkpoints were back then, as failing the mission or being killed send you right back to the beginning. Something that'll be a pain in the ass later in the game. Red arrives too late to be of any help, but still asks Annie about the gold in the mountains, and also lets her know about the Battle Royale, as it could be her only chance to save the ranch. She doesn't have any information, but directs Red back to the saloon in Brimstone, since that is where the cheese man is at. When he walks in the saloon, 3 men almost immediately start blabbering about the one-armed man, which gets Red's attention, and when he asks nicely, he's rebutted by the rest of his friends, and a good old-fashioned bar fight breaks out. I forgot to mention the melee combat in this game, and it's introduced early on, and it's quite simple. Press B to punch, and you're able to do a little front kick with the right trigger. Melee is completely useless since ammo is never in short supply, so it just makes sense to give everybody a face full of lead instead. However, here you are forced to do melee in this section, and it is a huge clusterfuck. First of all, it's not really clear who you have to take out, so I just punched everyone I saw. You also have to protect 3 working girls. These guys can grab Red and throw him across the saloon, and it does big damage, and there's no way to wiggle your way out of it. It would have been nice to have an option to mash out of it, since these guys can grab you endlessly, and you just have to watch your health dwindle away. Red can equip broken bottles, and this can take out the enemies quicker. Overall, this section is a pain in the ass, but not the worst. It took me about 2 tries to beat. After the scuffle, the bartender helps Red get rearmed, and he pays her up by being rude to her for like no reason, like it's really uncalled for.
Looks like you still got some business with them brothers. They ain't what you call kindly fellas.
Open the damn door, woman.
Well, good luck to you. But I gotta look out for myself, so this door is getting locked behind you.
After their duel, we get a boss fight with Sam. He's a big burly dude who provoked the fight in the first place. It's not too complicated. He throws barrels at you, so you just shoot him while he is holstering them in the air. There's quite a bit of enemies with him, so Red must take care of them as well. When he gets about halfway health, he'll jump down and try to ram Red, a classic big man move. But like mostly these kinds of fights, bait out his attack and move out of the way, and make him hit a wall or a piece of furniture. The sheriff arrives, and he can't let this sort of nonsense slide, and has Red arrested and thrown in the pokey. While there, he breaks down who the one-armed man is, as well as the Golden Bear Mountain. And so begins what I believe is the worst level in the game. The game flashes back between the battle between the American army and the Mexican army. The latter led by General Diego, and is coming by the colonel, pre-arm being blown off. Take control of the general as he makes one last push against the American army. The sound of the cannons roaring and hitting the riverbed below really sells this battle. The first part of the level is straightforward. Just hold off any soldiers you see and try to protect your partner Jose, because that's a dope ass name and Jose's need to be protected. After taking out a few guys, this cutscene plays out and you see this dude, and I laughed my ass off when I saw how crazy this guy's face looks. Like, look at him. I don't know if I should be offended or not. I don't know. As the cannons continue to roar, you get to use your ability to mark any opposing cannon or enemy with a flare. In doing so, let your cannons know to target these guys and blow them to pieces by a 400-pound cannonball. Unfortunately, the enemy have their own cannons, and they don't need any flares, so they can find you with no issue. This is where much of my frustration began to fester, and when I died, the god-awful checkpoint system sent me back to the beginning of the damn level. So you must do the first initial fight over again, seeing this goofy ass cutscene of that dude waving his arms around over and over and over again. Marking the enemy cannons can help alleviate much of the pressure of the game. You could also hide underneath the bridge and pop out to take out the cannons. After that is done, the general orders poor Alonzo to blow up the bridge, and you gotta protect him as he plants the charges. But this bridge is so small and rickety, and Alonzo needs to plant 6 charges. I think a strong gust of wind would have made more sense. In the wake of the battle, General Diego finds a potential spy and orders to have him shot. But pleading for his life, the man reveals he's a businessman and is in possession of a mountain of gold, and offers the general half for sparing his life. Diego, of course, doesn't want half, as he wants the whole damn thing, and also orders to take out his business partner, Nate Harlow, Red's father. With his sights set on Diego, the sheriff drops the charges if Red can bring Diego dead, and directs him to where he delivers gold to the governor, but warns that this terrain is heavily fortified. Getting Devil's Fork, the game implies that this is more of an open area, since you're prompted to use the map to get your bearings. Speaking of the map, tell me what that looks like. The map is also a non-factor, as your objective is just right around the corner of where you started. And once the cavalry gets wind of your presence and they send out the wagon, you gotta chase it down on horseback. Luckily, it's very vulnerable to rifle shells. To chase the wagon around and weave through a machine gun fire, which is very easy. I wish there was more to this level, perhaps have Red set charges or maybe set some sort of trap using the surrounding ravines and boulders, but instead just shoot it until it's dead. After taking out the wagon, Red gets jumped by the colonel and taken to the gold mine. While this is happening, a Native American is looking on in the distance. This is Shadow Wolf, our next playable character, and Red's cousin. Red's mother was Native American, and it is a detail that only becomes relevant when it comes to this character. Perhaps Red saved this tribe when he lost his parents, but we don't really know, and it's never really mentioned. All that is just assumption on my part. Shadow Wolf asks the elders for permission to go after Red, and after giving the go-ahead, he is off to save his cousin. This section acts as sort of the stealth section of the game, or at least the game implies that it is. Shadow Wolf's default running animation is a crouch, and then you can press the left thumbstick so you can go ahead and super crouch. He's good with a bow and arrow, and you can try to take out foes quietly, but enemies rarely ever go down in one hit, so after a while it just becomes business as usual as you take out everyone in sight. The bow and arrow fire quickly enough. It is never really an issue against the enemy's more traditional weaponry, and his Deadeye ability lets Shadow light an arrow on fire and set enemies ablaze. Just don't get too close, as you could also be set on fire. The level ends with a boss fight with fucking Sabretooth. He jumps around on these totems, but shooting them knocks him down and stuns him for follow-up hits. And just repeat this pattern, and this dude is easy work. Shadow Wolf finds Red, locked up with a captured soldier, and frees them both. The first section of this level is another forced stealth sequence. As Red is unarmed, he just has some throwing knives, but again, enemies can never go down in one hit. Perhaps implementing the stealth mechanics from other Rockstar darling Manhunt, these mines would have been the perfect backdrop for some cool cat and mouse stealth gameplay, but no, can't have nice things. After cutting through these guys, Red is finally able to rearm himself, and the mine begins to open up. There are locked doors everywhere, so when Red has a backtrack to find keys to unlock them, this is perhaps the only time the map really comes in handy. You'll be constantly activating Deadeye. As Red blasts through these corridors, Red makes his way deeper into the mine, where more goons are waiting. After all the hombres are dead, the level ends with Red walking up to a minecart, and the game has you expecting to have this awesome sequence through the mines a la Resident Evil 4, but nope, we cut right away to the soldier that escaped when Shadow Wolf freed Red. Buffalo Soldier wants to make his way back into Brimstone to warn the governor, so he hitches a ride with a salesman who is hauling explosives into town. The next two levels are on rails. You must protect the wagon from taking too much damage. And it's easy. The hitboxes for this section are extremely generous, which I was very thankful for, because there were some shots that I took that missed by a huge margin. The first section, Buffalo must take out General Diego's men, who follow him from the mine. Again, very straightforward. You shoot the men on the horses before they hit you. And the next level has the two pass through a ravine. The wagon gets jumped by Native Americans, and I think it's the same tribe as Shadow Wolves, which I hope I am wrong about that, because that would be kind of messed up. Buffalo's Deadeye is the same as Annie's. Activate and cause a big obnoxious explosion. There will be enemies that will jump onto the wagon. Buffalo can use the bayonet attached to his rifle to take them out. He reaches the governor to let him know about the rogue general hiding in the mountains. The governor seems to not only be aware of this ruffian, but they are in cahoots, and he is being funded by Diego and his army. I love this scene when Buffalo gets captured. He's just like, damn, they got my ass. Shadow Wolf and Red make their way out of the mines and run into a fort and a Gatling gun. Shadow Wolf tells you he will draw their fire, and Red must find a way into the fort. It's not clear how you actually make your way inside, so my first time through this level, I took out everyone, even the guy shooting the Gatling gun. Now until I got curious and climbed onto his window, they start to make sense on where to go. When making your way through the fort, everything is close quarters, so I decided it was best to have a sawed-off shotgun, as I assumed it would make short work of most enemies. And I was about half right on that assumption. Finally getting into the Gatling gun, and getting the opportunity to mow down the rest of the enemies, is a level of catharsis that can never be matched. Colonel Darren captures Shadow Wolf, and he reveals to be the one-armed man from that fateful night. He also has seen to replace said arm with a shoulder mounted cannon. This fight is easy. There will be a big white flash whenever he's getting ready to shoot, so find some good cover and you'll be fine. I tried shooting him with the Gatling gun to see if I can avoid going down there. It's easy to stun him, just get behind him and shoot him a few times, and Ray will do big damage. The hardest part about this fight is fighting the dread of dying, because this game checkpoint system was made in the bowels of hell. But luckily I never had to find out. Taking Darren out just leaves one more target, Diego. The next level is very ambitious. Red must chase Diego's fortified train on horseback. Getting close to the carts lets you jump on board and take out the enemies, and detach the corresponding carts. I love when you make your way to the second cart, Red must shoot the door open to get on board. This is a cool little touch I really love. A kindly man will eventually show up and sees Red is in a pickle, so he lets him use the Gatling gun attached to his cart and take out the remaining enemies. and the train's engine. And this old guy must be on the sauce, because he has no problem catching up to a speeding locomotive. The train stops, but Diego is still on board, and has holed himself inside one of the carts. And this boss fight is frustrating. He can be hard to hit as he is hiding in the cart and will only pop out of one of the windows to shoot you or shoot a flare, so it's cannon to aim and fire. So it's important to keep moving. There is cover, but Diego's big ass cannonballs would blast right through them. I tried to maybe use the horse to help me get around, and it probably does help, but I think I was doing it wrong. Luckily Red can do it just fine on his own. Just keep on moving and be patient and wait for any openings. There are also two goons who will spawn in during the whole fight, and one will man the Gatling gun, and the other will sit back and pot shot you from cover. This was the part of the fight that would send me over the edge. They would make it so frustrating. No matter how many times you take them out, they will always just spawn back in. And trying to take them out quickly becomes impossible because some of these enemies just tank so many of your shots. The window to attack Diego is very small, so you learn to divide your attention between the two threats. It isn't impossible, just needlessly frustrating. After dealing with the last of his train, he comes rushing out, and you think it's going to be an epic fight or a duel, but nope. You deal with him like any other enemy. He tries to bribe Red, but he is having none of it. After this, the game story sort of peters off, as all the antagonists seem to be dealt with. However, we do finally get to that battle royale, the one that has been teased throughout the whole game. And it isn't a brawl in the streets or anything, just a dueling contest. Cool, I guess, but a bit underwhelming. Jack Swift and Annie Stokes are also here, both trying to win the bag. Mr. Kelly is the favorite to win, and is also the one who captured our boy, Buffalo. The rest of the contest is contested through a flashy montage, and this town seems to be okay letting sanctioned murder just go down the middle of the street. Red must take out what I assume is just a kid. I thought maybe I could disarm him, but the game leaves me no choice but to take him out. This duel will help me realize my biggest gripe with this mechanic. The game makes it very unclear when the duel actually starts. I wish there was some sort of cue to go, and you can't afford to wait to see when the other person goes because later duels, these guys are lightning quick, and hesitating can lead to an instant death. So trial and error becomes the de facto way of getting through these encounters. After a quick reprieve at the saloon, Day 2 of the Battle Royale begins, and Governor Griffin takes over the contest, immediately disqualifying Annie and Jack, leaving Red and Mr. Kelly to battle it out for the $5,000. After besting Mr. Kelly, Griffin pulls out a gun on Red, and the same one your dad had. But didn't he say it was one of a pair? Only two in the whole world?
Yeah! Can I hold it?
She's one of a pair, only two in the whole world.
One for him, one for his partner? Yeah, I'm being hyperbolic. This twist is pretty obvious. But I'm also not offended by it. This guy has been hinted at being the piece of shit throughout the whole game, and we saw him sell out his friend in an instant to Diego, so I'm happy to fill him full of holes too. I guess Red didn't shoot Mr. Kelly enough because he just gets right back up. Chasing me around Brimstone, I try my best not to shoot any of the other townfolk, with varying levels of success. But we finally take Mr. Kelly out, and the trio decides to head to the governor's mansion for revenge and the money they are due. They told the mansion has a great high stakes feel to it. I like how they don't notice all these dudes clearly getting ready to blast them. There are tons of enemies and plenty of beefier guys with health bars. There isn't any real challenge. Up to this point, the best weapons in the game become available to you, so mowing everyone down is no issue. Annie and Jack are also a huge help and pull their weight during the final siege. By the end of the first encounter, there's only this Randy fella left, and he decided he wanted to chase me around this fountain, which just looks really goofy. Of course, the front door doesn't work, so the gang tries to go through the side and then the second floor. The governor has this place locked up tight. Jack decides to pick the lock at the front door, and Red has to defend Jack from waves of enemies. It is better than the one in the train given the amount of enemies come to attack the three. Staying in constant motion using Jedi when necessary was a lot of fun, and added a vulnerability of Jack really ups the stakes further. Once inside, there isn't much room to move around, so taking cover and trying to pick your shots is key. Something I've noticed while playing is that when enemies play the cover game too, they seem to have this extra bit of invulnerability, or they just snap in and out of cover so quickly, it could be impossible to even get a shot on them. So a safer bet is just go right up to their faces or get around them. But that isn't to say the frustration wasn't getting to me at a certain point. Even I had my limits. After fighting through the mansion, we get outside the governor's office, and his text will pop up saying the walls look odd, but it isn't clear how they are odd. In most video games, we have to look around for any discrepancies. The wall you need to break down or interact with will be a different shade or have a different texture to it to help distinguish it from the others. But nope, not here. The game kind of leaves you hanging. I was shooting at these paintings and punching the walls like an angry fat boy until I just looked it up. I just had to take cover at a specific point to trigger the cutscene. This mansion, of course, has a secret door, and as more goons flood the room, Jack decides to stay behind and provide cover as you make your way deeper into the mansion. Red links up with Annie, and shortly afterwards, the two fight their way through the guards and find Buffalo Soldier, still alive. I don't know why they didn't just shoot the man, but screw it, he comes along to help. There is a duel shortly afterwards. Instead of helping, Buffalo just off to the side, just watching. Finding getting to the roof, Griffin has nowhere to go. There is a guy chucking dynamite and he can take out chunks of your health before you get to the final fight. So taking him out first is key. Buffalo tries to pull the gate for you, but Griffin decides to lend a hand as well, which is so dumb and obviously a convoluted way to get Red by himself. Keeping your distance and focusing on Griffin is key to make easy work of this fight. At first I tried to rush him down, but if you do that, he would just grab you and there is no way to escape. And he can do this repeatedly. Take pot shots at him with your rifle and he goes down pretty easy. He gets to about quarter health, he initiates the final duel. And he can take you out within a split second of starting. So guess what? If you die to this duel, get ready to start all the way over to the beginning of the damn level. Going through all that nonsense again and getting back to the duel, Red finally gets his revenge. And the game does this weird quick cut from the final shot of Griffin's body to the final cutscene. It sort of takes the wind out of the sails of that final moment and doesn't give you a chance to savor finally being in the game. The sheriff will show up and survey the aftermath and threatens to take Red in for, you know, killing a governor, which is a big no-no. Also, Jack dies off screen. Like, what? What do you mean? The sheriff offers Red the $5 grand as a bounty, but he refuses and takes Griffin's pistol instead and offers a reward to Annie because to him,
It never was about the money.
the story of Red Dead Revolver is a straightforward one. Red's character is very shallow. He doesn't have any motivations apart from wanting money and wanting revenge. I would have loved to have seen him as perhaps the bounty hunter with a heart of gold. Perhaps if that dog stayed around longer than 5 minutes, or if we saw him saving others, or even letting a bounty go because he sympathized with them in some way. I can see the vision for him as a no-nonsense gunslinger, but that can get old if there isn't any other characteristics that contrast with that hard exterior. The rest of the cast are colorful characters, and their different perspectives do add to the overall story and the world. But once again, there isn't much going on with them either. Annie is the only one who has a valid reason to be involved in the battle royale and the final showdown at the Griffin's mansion as she is trying to save her ranch. So it's easy to get behind her and wanted her to succeed. Speaking of the battle royale, the fact that it is just a series of duels is pretty underwhelming, just for the fact that it's teased throughout the whole game. At this point in the tale, Red really has no reason to be in this battle royale to begin with. He got his revenge, and if he really needed the money, he could have raided Diego's train. What if during the battle royale, he did get paired with either Jack or Annie? Would he have just shot them too? I believe so. I mean, shot that kid. I wish the story would have explored these dilemmas further and fleshed out the cast, as there is potential to build drama between them. What if we did get to see tension between the trio during the battle royale? Saw Red's upbringing with Shadow Wolf, and saw Jack Swift's time as a trick shooter. Maybe a flashback with Governor Griffin and his time with Nate Harlow. I understand story works to get Red and company moving, and to get them in these outrageous shootouts. But it's hard to wish for more given where the series would eventually go, and the pedigree of storytelling it would become. This is as bare bones as it gets. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's over quickly and doesn't overstay its welcome. If you know what to expect, it's an entertaining story, albeit a bit predictable. The gameplay holds up well, the shooting and weapons feel great, and the levels never outstay their welcome, only lasting 10 to 15 minutes at most, and help lend to the arcade feel. The whole game feels like it would have been great on a handheld system, given how fast you can blaze through these missions. It would have been nicely suited for killing time while on a bus or something. Also forgot to mention, there is a roll you can do that in theory helps to avoid fire. It would be useful at times to get out of the way of enemies, but I would also forget it was even an option, which is my own fault. The running gun gameplay is fast and frenetic. It does feel good to get multiple headshots back to back, and Deadeye is always a blast to pull off to make gunfight. I wish the cover system mechanic was better utilized. There was levels that were built for cover in mind, but doing so winds up getting you hit most of the time. I wish weapon selection had some variety. For the most part, it's just a lot of revolvers and rifles, with the occasional shotgun, just with various levels of damage and speed. There was machine guns back then, but there's a guy with a shoulder mounted cannon, so I'm sure they could have thought of something. Walking around Brimstone, there wasn't anything much to do except buy new weapons. It would be nice to have a few side missions, or give it a central hub, maybe a room atop the bar, or something where he can view key items from the story, or even change his appearance. Another Rockstar gem from that time had a small open area, but it was packed with so much to do, it was easy to forget how small it was. Something similar could have been done here. Beating the story unlocks a new game plus and a higher difficulty. All your weapons and cash accumulated at the end of the game can carry over to this new difficulty, which is always a plus in my book. I hate it when games don't let you do that. And you also unlock the Scorpion Revolver, which is the best in the game. And this thing can rip through everything and makes the hard difficulty a cakewalk. There's also a Bounty Hunter mode, which serves as this game's challenge mode. In this mode, each level will have specific challenges associated with them. These involving clearing a level with only headshots, or clearing a level without taking any damage. Failing to meet these requirements leads to an automatic fail, forcing you to start over. It's brutal, and only reserved for the most dedicated, or those looking to platinum the game. The Showdown mode is Red Dead's multiplayer mode. Up to 4 players can choose characters either unlocked by playing the story or by purchasing trinkets in the story mode. They all play alike for the most part, except for a few exceptions, like Pig Josh or Mr. Black. The latter has a sweet move where he can pull out the Gatling gun from his coffin, the trade-off being he is slow as hell. There's 3 game modes. Bounty Hunter, which the goal is to be the first to get to a certain number of points. Sundown, which is the standard time deathmatch, and High Noon, which is the most unique mode because it is a dueling battle where the last one standing wins the round, and the first of 3 rounds wins the whole game. This would have actually been a great way to do the battle royale in a story mode. During Bounty Hunter and Sundown, whenever a fellow player falls, they drop playing cards. Picking one up adds to your overall hand. A specific hand like a royal flush or 3 of pair unlocks combat bonuses or a new weapon, which are usually variations of the standard kind like sticky bombs or poison arrows. It is a fun game mode. I can see the potential for some fun matches with friends. Unfortunately, I could see it being hard to convince any adults who remember this game to come over for a few rounds. So playing with bots is your only option if you choose to give this mode a shot. The game's visual could be a mixed bag. On one hand, it's very much of its time, and that rush development can be seen on some of these character models. Especially the faces, I mean, just look at them. God damn, I've been harping on this all video, but just look at them, seriously. Like, do you blame me? On the other hand though, some characters look awesome. Red in particular looks really great. I'm a big fan of those scars and permanent shading around his face. He reminds me of Wolverine from the X-Men. The environments are a hit or miss. McGiver's Mansion is a great set piece, and Chase the Train on horseback is another highlight visually. I also love the ghost town and the cemetery. The lighting goes to be really impressive. For me, for whatever reason, I really enjoyed this cool shot in the general store, the sunlight seeping through the windows, with Red's silhouette taking up the center of the frame. It looks so good. The game also has this film grain during cutscenes that helps make you feel like you are watching an old spaghetti western. And I love the zoom in shots when you start an encounter, and the slow motion shot when you finish the last enemy and all the chunky blood comes out of them. For me though, the biggest standout visually are these loading screens. No matter how many times I saw Reds, I never got tired of it. And some of them are just so gorgeous. It's a shame they only show up once in the story. Red Dead Revolver isn't a powerhouse visually. You'll be nitpicking the physics of your horse's balls, but it does have its charm. Sonically, the game sounds great. The game has a score consisting of licensed tracks from the likes of Luis Bacalov, Bruno Nicolai, and Francisco Damasi. Famous composers who have contributed to films like the original Django and various other spaghetti westerns. I do love the soundtrack a lot. The swoopy melodies accompanied by strumming guitars, bombastic horns, and pounding drums do a good job of getting the blood pumping. Honestly, the only downside is that for much of the game, you hear the same 4 or 5 tracks on repeat, which isn't a bad thing if you are a fan of this music, but do understand if you do get a bit annoyed by it. The sound effects are also top notch. Love the sounds of bullets ricocheting off surfaces and whipping through the air. I even got a kick of the rustling of Red's spurs as he walks around. Also, this punching sound in the menu is so needlessly louder than anything else in the game. Red Dead Revolver that's so often disregarded by the community and Rockstar themselves, as they've stated publicly that the events in the game are non-canon. That doesn't dissuade players for thinking otherwise. As around the time of Red Dead Redemption 1's release, a popular theory was going around that Uncle, the one plagued with lumbago, was an older Red Harlow, but I doubt the stoic outlaw would allow himself to turn into such a goof. Red Dead Revolver, like Red himself, is subject to legend, his story allowing more grindier tales to be told. In the Red Dead Redemption series, you can hear many characters speak of Red's adventures.
Yeah, my brother, he's dead now, but he used to tell me stories about Red Harlow. Legendary bounty hunter bringing the savage outlaws of the frontier to justice. A man who watched his parents get murdered in front of him as a boy, but who uses that pain to become a better man and ultimately to wreak his vengeance.
And he has become a legend to be told during cold nights in the frontier next to a campfire. And I believe this is where that story belongs. Red Dead Revolver was the precursor to a juggernaut, and its fantastic tale lives on through those who were there during its heyday, or any suspecting players willing to give this forgotten gem a whirl.
Rumors you were alive but never believed it. You're Nate Harlow's son, Red.
Tell me what you know about the death of my family.
Guessing there's more where they came from. Not contraptions that make short work of them.
His father?